It's great to be with you again and talk about the history of Usui Reiki and our points of view.
Hi, Walter. It's really nice to see you again. You know, you've been telling me for a number of years that we should start doing these virtual discussions, and I was resisting it always for some reason. I don't really know why, but I'm really enjoying it, and I'm glad we're doing it now.
Yeah, same with me. You know, I'm always a little bit reluctant to walk new paths, and I know that for 1.5 years I had everything ready for doing emails on my computer. So I had a modem and I had the software and everything, but just didn't do it, you know. So, and if you ask me why, it was just a process of getting things in and digesting that inside in a way or another. And I think this is also like we do these projects. We just need to be ready for it, you know.
Yeah, same here. So today I thought we could talk about the Usui Association in
Yeah,
Tokyo and
very good idea.
how we got in touch with them. And it happened in already in 1995, I think, or early 96, that one of my students had a client, and during the treatment, she told him that his mom practiced Reiki. And at the time, we had thought that there was nobody left in Japan practicing Reiki. And he then introduced my student to one of the few Shihans of the Usui Association.
There are not much of them, right?
No, they had at the time, so we're around the end of 95, middle of 96, they had about an estimated 500 students, 500 members. And they claim that before World War II, so before 1941, when Japan officially entered the war, they had 1 million.
Wow.
I think that number is a bit big, but anyway, this is what they say. So whatever it means, they used to be quite large, and in the 90s, they had shrunk down a lot. They had meetings in Tokyo, and my student, Shizuko Akimoto, she was invited to meet one of those teachers, one of the 5 or 6 teachers that they had at the time, and he started teaching her, telling her techniques and things we'd never heard about. And we had talked about this previously, that we were missing meditation and breathing techniques, and all of these things suddenly came up from the Usui Association. I was thrilled. So
yeah, me too.
Before Ogawa Sensei, who was one of those Shihans of the Usui Association, before he died in 98, he gave my student some documents to give to me. And he said, but they can't be sent by post. He has to come and pick them up. They lived in Tokyo. I lived in Sapporo in the north, was about 1,000 kilometers. So I actually flew there one day to meet my friend Shizuko, and we met because I didn't know Tokyo very well, in an underground cafe.
What?
In the subway, you know, they have this in the subway in Tokyo. They have this whole underground city. For us, it's unthinkable. Yeah?
Wow.
With coffee shops and boutiques and supermarkets, and all underground. Yeah? And in one of those places we met, and I still remember sitting there with her. She said, "Look, I have something for you that Ogawa Sensei didn't want to put through the mail," and she handed me 3 documents, one of which was his memoirs. They were called Dare Demo Reiki Dekiru, which means anyone can do Reiki. And right away I thought, maybe our publisher, the Windfeld Verlag, might be interested. So I asked them if they would like to publish it. They said yes. Then I asked him, and he said, no, it's only for you.
Okay.
The next document was the manual that Usui Sensei used to give to his students. Yeah? And
Yes.
that was incredible. We had heard about it previously from
Yeah.
him, but we've never seen it. And at the time, what I received was like a Xerox, a copy of a copy of a copy, so it didn't look very
Mm-hmm.
nice. Years later, we found an original, yeah, which
Mm-hmm.
Tadao Yamaguchi has in Kyoto, very beautiful. Yeah? So that was kind of a revolution for me, because until then, we were all taught that Reiki was an oral tradition and that
Oh yeah.
there
Oh
shouldn't
gosh.
be anything in writing, da, 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 and so on. Yeah? And
Yeah.
published that, or part of that, as part of my second book, The Legacy of Dr. Usui.
I remember, a great book.
And then the third document was a teaching manual of the then President Koyama Sensei,
Ah, okay.
in which she describes in detail
Mm-hmm.
many of the techniques that they use for their daily practice and the work with their clients. Yeah? And I studied that over a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I felt confident that I could pass those things on, I actually came to you and you organized a group for the Japanese Reiki techniques.
Yes, I remember. That was in Hanover.
Yes,
In Hanover. That was a great weekend. No, I think it was 3 days, isn't it?
3 days. Yes, yes.
It was 3 days. Yeah, and you have had this wonderful Japanese video camera with you, and these 20 gigabytes recorder with all the music on it. Where I thought, wow, I adore it. I adore it. You know.
Yeah, this was nice. So those techniques were techniques that we didn't know until then,
Mhm.
and the I think the main difference for me was that until then we kind of thought that Reiki was passed on by an initiation, yeah, and boom, suddenly everything is there and you're changed, you're transformed, and you know everything, and you become
Mhm.
a better human being. And of course,
Reiki teaches you. Yeah.
yes, of course, we knew that
Yeah.
that's not how it works. Yeah?
Mhm.
But now we got the techniques that they use for their daily self transformation. Yeah? So for them, the idea is that just like if you're a carpenter, you need to work
Mhm.
to learn something. If you don't work, you don't learn. And what they do as their work is, first of all, the gasho meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sitting with hands folded, eyes closed, and paying attention to what's happening in your hands, generating energy
Mhm.
and being aware. And then a breathing exercise that's very beautiful, breathing into your lower abdomen and
Mhm.
cleansing. Yeah? Those were
Mhm.
the three basic techniques that they had to practice at home every day. And Koyama Sensei, the then president of the association, said, okay, look, if you work hard, you get good results. If you do nothing, nothing happens.
Right. Mhm. And I think this until today often is not understood, or people just don't know about it, that like any other art, people have to do something with Reiki and they have to work with it. And Reiki does not teach you. You have to study it with someone who has practiced, who has a good idea of what he or she is doing. And of course, that also the theory behind it is important, that we know about the five principles, that we have an idea of Reiki. So often I hear misconceptions about Reiki, like you cannot you cannot give Reiki when you are a man with the left hand, because then Reiki will not be transmitted, you know, or that you have to walk counterclockwise, um, or, around a table where someone is lying. If this is a woman and if it's a man, you have to walk clockwise if you change positions. And one of the weirdest things I've ever heard, that was also in the 90s. Um, a master was doing a talk in Hanover, and he said that after dawn, you should not apply Reiki because of the Tattwa waves. And until today, I have no good idea what he was talking about, but he was very persistent that it is dangerous to do Reiki after dawn. So I do a lot of Reiki after dawn, never had a problem with that, and also my students do, and I guess that you did too. So
Yeah, there are so many myths about it when it's really the most easy thing in the world.
oh
So
yeah, yeah.
just put your hand on somebody and that's it, you know, nothing else that you need no preliminary work has to be done. You can just place your hands and it goes on, and you take your hands off and it goes off after a while, that is. So this meeting with the Usui Association that really changed Reiki history and my personal history very much
Yeah.
too. So I've been teaching these techniques for how many years? 25 years or something like that now.
Yeah, I,
Yeah,
I
they're very
guess
fun.
so. And it's still I think something which is really worth taking for any Reiki practitioner, so they know more about the roots of Reiki. And come on, Usui was a very, very good healer. He was a world-class healer, so it's a good idea to understand what he was doing.
Exactly. His system is really genius. Yeah? He had
Mhm.
this incredible ability to draw from all different sources and combine it into an incredible healing system.
Mhm.
Yeah, really amazing. Yeah?
What I'm really interested about is what was the Uzui Gakkai really doing? So there were 500 people at the time when you were coming to know them closer. So what were these 500 people doing?
So one of the things they did is they would practice these things together
Ah,
every
okay,
week
they met.
when they had their meeting. Yeah? So that
Mhm,
was their regimen. They read a poem, one of the poems of the Meiji Emperor, and
mhm, mhm,
one of the teachers talked about what he thought that meant. Then
mhm.
they did the Gasho meditation, breathing, and the cleansing. They had a lecture every time about some subject, some Reiki related subject, and questions and answers, and then they would do group treatments.
Ah,
And
okay.
this they did every week in
Mhm.
Tokyo, but they were doing it in private, not in public. And that had
Ah, mhm.
legal reasons because after World War II,
Yeah.
the US occupational forces came and took charge in Japan. They outlawed all the traditional healing arts and said from now on you have to use only Western medical science.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to buy the medication from US pharmaceutical companies. Yeah? So
Yeah.
they created this huge business and got rid of all the traditional healing arts. Now, the Reiki people at the time, after World War II, they were not very well organized
Mhm.
because Reiki is a spiritual group, and during the war, the Japanese government suspected that anyone who's involved in a spiritual group might have some kind of ties to the pacifist movement,
Oh gosh.
to the peace movement, yeah, which is,
Ah,
of course, not really wrong, yeah, because somebody who's practicing healing is not really interested in killing other people. Yeah?
yeah, for sure.
So the Usui Association had to stop their public work during World War II, and it was many years. Yeah? Their involvement was from 41 to 45.
Mhm.
And when the war was over, they thought, oh, great, now we can have our meetings again, and they were looking for a place, and then they
Yeah.
realized that they couldn't work in public anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And what the choices they were given by the government was either you get into trouble or you create like a membership association, and
Mm-hmm.
then you practice what you do within that membership organization only, but don't do anything public. And
Oh, okay.
this is what they did. Yeah, so it wasn't really their choice
Mm-hmm.
to go that way. They had to. They were forced to do it, and then they just kind of maintained that format from 1945 until the 90s when I heard about them. Yeah, and in
So,
that process, because
mm-hmm.
you couldn't do it in public and you couldn't work with Reiki in public, they just shrank and shrank and shrank and shrank and shrank.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they couldn't recruit new members.
They did, but they had very strict rules, yeah? Kind of almost like a lodge. Yeah? So first of all, they had a certain number of space,
Mm-hmm.
yeah? Spaces for we can have so and so many people, yeah? Just the
Ah.
people who fit into the place. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And let's say if somebody moved away or died or something like that, there would be an empty chair. So
Mm-hmm.
they said, okay, you can bring somebody to the members. And first, that new member had like a meeting with the president. If he didn't like your nose, that was it. Yeah? If he liked you, then you were introduced to everybody. And if somebody had reservations about you, that was it. Yeah, so it was like a democratic thing in those
Mm-hmm.
days. Yeah? So it was very difficult to get in. And then they had other rules, and they had to do not with, I think, with what they really wanted to do, but because of the legality of things, they said,
Mm-hmm.
if you practice some other kind of Reiki, you can't be a member. So
Mm-hmm.
they knew of us.
Okay.
Yeah? And if you make money with Reiki, you can't become a member.
Ah, but this was after World War II. I cannot. I don't think that this was before World War II
No,
because
after.
we charged money. Hayashi did
Yeah, yeah, after.
after.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
After the war. So um, if you made your living with Reiki, you couldn't become a member. Yeah,
And
and those people who were members could work only with each other.
I see, I see. And did they explain why, or was it just legal reasons?
Yes, it was just legal
Just
reasons.
legal reasons.
Yeah, because when if you look at the history of spiritual healers in Japan, which they have an incredible wealth of
Mm-hmm.
from the late 1700s onwards, they all ended up in jail sooner or later. The big guys, yeah? The big teachers, for whatever reason. Yeah? And after
Mm-hmm.
the war, they, I actually met somebody once who had been in jail for doing healing illegally.
Mm-hmm. What I've learned from history in Japan is that from the Russian War, which I was in the beginning, which I think was in the beginning of the 1900s,
Yes, yes,
2000s, there was a very strong national movement, a nationalist movement,
yes, yes,
that they even were overthrowing the government, and they were fascist like Hitler was, and I've I've heard that Usui was only able to maintain his society because he had many naval officers, which were a kind of elite, because they were overthrowing the Russians in that war with the ships. Uh, that he was in a way safe because of that. But on the other hand, this got stronger when it was coming towards Second World War, and I guess that also the nationalist movement got more and more sensitive regarding pacifists, that they understood them as enemies of the nation or something like that, and that they were, out of that reasons, were trying to imprison leaders of healing movements and these kind of things. And I think they had also a kind of restoration of Shinto, that they didn't want the Buddhists, and were putting the Buddhists into prison and these kind of things.
Yeah, this was a little bit earlier. That happened in the beginning of the Meiji period in Japan, when the father of the Meiji emperor died. He was 15 at the time. And of course, his advisors were very worried whether or not he could keep the power, being a teenage boy. And this was the time when there was a strong movement to end the monarchy also in Japan. So they were very worried about that. And his advisors had a very clever idea to change the original Shinto, it's called Ho-Shinto or ancient Shintoism, in which there is no one single god in human form. There are really no temples. There are no scriptures. There are no religious idols. There's no philosophy that you can grasp, but it's all about the human in his relationship with the divine, with millions of gods. And you and I, everybody who's listening, we all can, with our inner work, become one of those. So this was the original idea. And when the Meiji emperor took over, when he was enthroned, they changed it. His advisors changed it and said he is an incarnation of Amaterasu Omikami, the goddess of the sun. And this, you all know, it's the Japanese flag, is that? So that he became a son of God. And of course, that was a political movement. So he was not only the worldly leader of the country, but also the spiritual leader.
So that happened that late in history?
Around 1870.
Okay, so that was a relatively new development in the emperor's state. I always thought that was from the beginning, but that's very interesting that they were.
Can you still hear me? No. Hello, Walter, can you hear me?
Ah, wunderbar, da bist du wieder. Irgendwie war das plötzlich weg.
Ja, futsch.
Ja, ich schalte die Aufzeichnung. Ah, die ist wieder an. Okay, wunderbar.
All right. Yeah.
It was
So,
about Meiji restoration and that the emperor was being understood as a god then.
yes. So this happened in the early 1870s, and it went on for a few years until the emperor realized that this is not the right way to deal with his people.
Mm-hmm.
And for a few years, the Buddhists got persecuted. The Christians weren't allowed to have services at their churches and all that. But then he changed that again, luckily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all of that really led to the situation with Reiki. That the Japanese government didn't like to have people with healing abilities working in public.
Would, did they fear that they got political power with that?
Yeah. This was it. The biggest group at the time was called the Omote Kyo,
Yeah, I
and
heard about that.
their leader spent quite a number of years in jail because they were worried that they were getting too big and too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And the Usui Association didn't want to go on that path, so they kept, as far as I can see, completely out of politics.
Mm-hmm.
No political agenda. Usui Sensei included some of the poetry of the emperor into his teaching materials, gave them to his students. We also found an original of that. It's about this size, a small book with 125 poems.
Yeah, I think you contributed them to our The Spirit of Reiki book.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
probably it was partly a political idea
Mm-hmm.
to like to make a sign that, hey, we don't have a political agenda, we're just working on ourselves here. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So after World War II, they couldn't do this in public anymore, and then they went sort of underground, had their meetings only with their people. They couldn't be listed in the phone book, they couldn't have a signpost outside of their meeting hall, things like that. Yeah? So they
Wow.
just shrank and shrank and shrank. And a few years ago, I heard there were just 300 of them
Mm-hmm.
left.
They must have very high average age, I
Yes.
guess. That says a lot about the powers of Reiki to help to
Yes,
keep you
yes.
going, you know.
Yes, we have tried a number of times to get in touch with them, but they don't seem to be interested in meeting people from other Reiki streams, which I think brings us to a nice subject, yeah, about which is the right Reiki.
Yeah, that is a very interesting topic. I often have these kind of discussions when I have stalls at esoteric fairs and when I give talks. And in my understanding, there is just one energy which is Reiki, and this is not the same as prana or chi because you have hundreds of words with the end syllable ki and with different other syllables in front of that to specify what kind of ki that is. And in our books, The Spirit of Reiki, I also wrote about a system, a Japanese system to classify energies, ki energies. So Reiki has special qualities which make it different from others. And in my experience, there are no different kinds of Reiki. There's Reiki, that's it.
I totally agree, Walter. Reiki doesn't have a label on it,
No,
at all. And if somebody says to me that my Reiki is better than yours, I mean, he's disqualified, no? Finished.
absolutely, absolutely.
Doesn't
It,
understand the basics.
the energy is always the same. That is like when people go for, I don't know, that they go for skiing, that the skis are the same, the snow is the same, yeah. but their ability to use it, that might be different.
Yes,
So
yes, of course, of
this
course.
is why I study Reiki.
That's very true. I mean, we did that once a number of years ago when we had Reiki shares every week. At the time, I was still living in Germany. We would mix up the people giving treatments during the treatment without the client knowing that a set of different people had come. Huh? And then we asked them afterwards, they were all Reiki practitioners, and they couldn't tell any difference at all. It was all the same beautiful, delicious
Sure.
Reiki energy. Yeah? You couldn't tell whether there was somebody doing Rainbow Reiki or Jikiden Reiki or whatever.
It's Reiki.
It's Reiki, finish, end of story. Yeah? And that's
And
so beautiful. Yeah?
that goes, I think, also for the symbols. Either a symbol does work because it's close enough to the original, or it does not work. But I have never seen a symbol which works to a certain extent. I don't know what your experience is, but either they work or they don't.
Yeah, it's the same with any technical appliance. Either
Yeah.
it works or it doesn't. It's very simple. Yeah? So all this fight and question of whether my symbol is right or yours is wrong, it's ridiculous. Yeah? If it
Yeah.
works, hey,
Yeah.
you're good.
My um, my understanding of teaching the symbols is that I want to pass on something, a version which I know it works first. And when it comes to the distant healing symbol, because this is a kanji, it's a letter which you can look up in the dictionary. I want it to be as close as possible to what you find in the dictionary, so people can do their own research if they want to, you know. So but I think it's much important to understand that there are no different Reikis, and that if people are initiated to Reiki, then they have Reiki in their hands, and if they are not, they're not. But that's it.
Right, and that's the only difference, really.
Yeah.
Yeah? And therefore, in Japan, they believe that the biggest step on your Reiki journey is between not having been initiated and having been initiated. Yeah? So it's not really that somebody has Reiki 2 is better than somebody who has
Oh
Reiki
God.
1, or a Reiki master is God's gift to humanity. No, it's the difference is either you have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And they really believe that we all have it anyway.
Sure. Otherwise, we couldn't
Already.
live.
Otherwise, we couldn't do it. And this
Mhm.
is why I said earlier, Ogawa Sensei's um, memoirs were called Anybody Can Do Reiki
Mhm.
because of
Mhm.
that. So they believe that around the third or fourth month of the pregnancy, of the and the gods come around and they breathe like a part of the cosmic soul into our third eye,
Mhm.
and via an invisible channel, this is connected to source.
Mhm.
But when education sets in, that
Mhm.
channel gets kind of plugged up. Huh?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
in the initiation process, you unplug that and then
Yeah.
it's there. But that also means that everybody has
Mhm.
Reiki from the
Mhm.
beginning. It just needs cleansing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
channel needs cleansing. That's it.
It's I think the initiation is like a second birthday. At least it was for me. And what I've seen in the Reiki community is often that there are there's a kind of hybrid that people think, oh, I'm a master, I cannot sit together in the breaks with students of first degree or so, or that a second degree will not exchange Reiki with a first degree. And that is just arrogance. That is not being spiritual in my understanding. Um, there's there's no one being energetically dirty, whether initiated to Reiki or not. So of course I can exchange Reiki with these people. And what I found interesting is that when people receive Reiki treatments, intense Reiki treatments for a longer period of time, let's say 3 weeks every day in a row or so, then they can pass on Reiki. But this fades away if the treatment was stopping. So I think that just getting in contact with the Reiki reminds your body of something.
For sure, I agree. Yeah? Because it's kind of like your birthright. Yeah? And
Yeah.
when you remember it, it's there, and it's at your service. Yeah?
As far as I understood from your books, it is until today the habit that whenever the people from the Usui Gakai meet, they receive initiation. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So why do they do that?
That's right. So I remember
Mm-hmm.
from Hayashi Sensei that he said that to get Shoden, or the first degree, you need 3 initiations or Leiju, and that's good enough
Mm-hmm.
forever.
Mm-hmm.
But he said it would be a good idea to receive once a month another one, just for cleansing purposes, because we have bad habits. Yeah? So what we
Mm-hmm.
said earlier is that you remember your birthright through a Reiki initiation. Yeah, it reminds you of something that you already have, but then you fall back into your old habits and you need to be reminded again. I'll tell you something that I found interesting, that I found from Koyama Sensei from the Usui Association. She said that when you receive an initiation with eyes closed and you sit with your hands in gasho, and they do it in the dark, in a completely dark room, and you must try it. It's incredible. It's beautiful. So she said, when you sit in the darkness during the initiation, many people see some inner light inside. Yeah? And most people see it like dark purple, but can be seen in any rainbow color. And she said, when you see that light, that's the light of your soul. Yeah? And
Beautiful.
by sitting with and being in touch with the light of your soul, you get transformed. And that's why
Wow.
you repeat it. Yeah?
Wow, that's
I
beautiful.
thought that's very nice. Yeah?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
imagine somebody comes and tells you, oh, Walter, why you're suffering? Everything is beautiful and you're already as you should be. And you go, yeah, but, right? We all do.
Yeah.
So we need to be reminded again and again and again. One of the reminders is the initiation. The other is the treatment.
Yes, yes. This is what I always was fascinated until today about the treatments is you treat someone, whether you know them or not, within several minutes, you feel so close, like knowing this person from childhood and being close friends and so on. Even if you don't talk with this person, that opens your heart. I remember this when I received my first degree, Usui Reiki, in 87. It was April. And at that time, for I think 2, 3 years, I was in a psychotherapy group. And when someone was crying, had emotional crisis, I always thought, should I go there? Should I not? What would the other think if I go there? And so on. So usually I didn't go there and was comforting the person in emotional crisis. And after this weekend with the Reiki One, there was a Tuesday another meeting, and someone started to cry, and I just was getting up, walking over, and comforted the person. And then later, when she was fine, I was going back. And when I was sitting down, I thought, "What the heck was that? What did I do?" because I even did not think about this. I still was so much in my heart from the weekend that I just was throwing away all these self-limitation and was doing what my heart was telling me. You know, this is what I really love with Reiki, that it teaches you the way of the heart if you let it.
Yeah, but if you let it, and if you, of course, if you practice, yeah, therefore,
That's what I mean.
yeah, therefore, this focus on giving the treatments. Yeah? So
Mm.
I remember when you and I learned Reiki, we were taught that, oh, you must treat yourself for 21 days or every day.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you go to Reiki hell, or
Yeah.
you will stop working, or all sorts of terrible things will happen to you. Of course, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Yeah. So if you don't practice, if you have been initiated into Reiki and you don't practice, nothing happens. Okay, and no damage done. Huh? But you don't learn anything. But if you do practice, then you get into this delicious state close to your inner being, yeah? And that
Mm-hmm.
transforms you. Huh? Like
Yeah.
you and I, we do Reiki all day. We are in that all day anyway. But my wife, for example, she doesn't come with me when I teach because she stays home with the kids and everything,
Mm-hmm.
takes care of everything here. And she says, when we do 2 hours of treatments per day, she feels
Mm-hmm.
really, really good,
Yeah.
both physically and emotionally,
It's a blessing.
psychologically. It's magic.
Uh, what I was doing a lot of research and thinking about is um, what makes a difference if people who do Reiki really get into that flow of love, or what happens with others who don't, because not everybody who is initiated to Reiki or is a Reiki master is a loving person. Traveling all over the world teaching Reiki as you do, I come to know a lot of people who do Reiki with very different mindsets. And the only thing I could identify is that besides the practice of Reiki, they need to do the meditation and work with the principles. I I think that if they don't work with the five principles, they don't agree to what Reiki is telling. That is my impression. I don't know what your experience is.
I think exactly the same. Yeah? The principles are the basic
Mm-hmm.
underlying philosophy of Reiki, and if you don't incorporate them in your life, yeah, the work is not happening. Yeah,
Right,
so
right.
this must be our first step on the memorial of Usui Sensei. It says you must start at home, and starting at home
Mm-hmm.
means this: transform your life, work on your anger, on your worries, on your
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
gratitude, on doing what you need to do, and be kind to people. If you work that out, you'll
Mm-hmm.
be okay, and then things start to move inside, yeah? And they start moving from the inside out. So you become really, your life becomes a blessing. Yeah? I don't mean it
Mm-hmm.
in a big way, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Just in a small personal way. Yeah? It will spread in your family and then in your environment, and this way the world changes. Yeah?
Yeah, that's what my experience is. Um, so I think that practicing Reiki brings, let's say, the power in, and meditating and working with the five principles directs the power. Is this something you would agree to?
I think so.
Mm.
Since we're talking about the meditation, yeah, I think it doesn't really matter what kind of meditation you do,
Right.
as long as you do something.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you don't like to sit like this and gush, or if maybe your arms hurt or your shoulders hurt, is uncomfortable,
Hmm.
do something else. Do vipassana, insight meditation, or whatever you like. Yeah? But do something.
Meditation. Right.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
must be done. Yeah, and it's not something that you can do for a few weeks and then you
No.
become
Oh
enlightened.
no. Oh no.
Yeah, but it takes years and years and years and years and becomes second nature because you
Mhm.
want to be able to draw that meditative state into your daily life, and that takes time. Yeah, and it's
Definitely.
beautiful. Yeah,
Mm.
it's
It,
really nice. I love it.
it's easy to learn the technique of meditation, but it's not easy to practice it. And for this, you need time. It's like with martial arts or with, well, at least with anything. Came to know a acupuncturist doctor some years ago, and he said, if you haven't done 10,000 hours of practicing with acupuncture, you have no idea.
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
and in a way, I think it's similar to other arts. And just remembering what my first little steps were with understanding the principles of Usui, what I know today, and what was happening in between. Always after a while, I thought I got it. Now I know it all. And then, life comes and teaches you a little bit.
I know the feeling. I'm the same. I'm the same. Yeah, I make the same mistake. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think also sitting together and discussing the principles and what your point of view is regarding them, and what your personal problems are, integrating them in daily life, and then using Reiki to help you to integrate them into daily life. We have the mental healing. We have lots of great techniques. We wrote that book, Reiki Best Practices. I think it's a kind of treasure chamber for people who like to practice Reiki. You can just use Reiki then to open yourself up to the principles. At least this is what I do. At the moment, I'm working with this thing, you know, that I try to be grateful for whatever. Boy, it's hard, but every little step I think pays out.
Yeah, the gratitude, this is really magic. Yeah? I
It
think
is. Wow, yeah.
this is
Yeah.
total magic. Yeah? Because basically we know that in the inner world, the higher vibration always transforms the lower
Yeah.
up. Yeah? So if you have love, gratitude, compassion, whatever, one of those in your heart, the other stuff doesn't have a chance.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really actually simple. Yeah? You just have to do it, but
Yes.
you need to do it. Yeah?
Yeah, you need to do it. You need to do it. And I think it's interesting to apply the principle, be kind to the beings and be grateful to also the first three principles. So be grateful for what makes you angry. Be grateful what uh, your work is. People come to me and they want to know about their vocation, and that usually they think being a spiritual teacher traveling around the world, this is what a vocation is. But in my understanding, everything could be a vocation. It's not exactly what you do, but your attitude, how you do it.
Right. I mean, in the simple formula, put in a simple formula, it's really appreciate your life. Huh?
Yes,
Your
yes,
life is you. Yeah,
yeah.
with the ups and downs, with the good things, the bad things, the challenging things, the fun, the dance, the tears, the everything. Yeah?
Mhm.
That's it. Yeah? There is nothing else.
It's so simple in a way and so complicated.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, so gratitude really, this is the, for me, has been the ticket. And for me, it's the most important of the all the principles because it changes your life completely.
Yes,
Yeah,
it has changed my life and it's still going on. Finding out about the difficult times in life, the people which were difficult to handle, finding out about what is the positive, what was brought into my life because of that, because they are, in my understanding, the messengers. And I it's my responsibility to find out about the message. So what is it teaching for me?
we also, it's my experience, yeah, we learn from our mistakes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Learn from the best, or I, at least, I can only talk about myself. I learn the best from my failures.
Me too.
Yeah,
And there were a lot of them.
yeah, that's just how it is, and that's okay, you know. And I always say to people who give themselves a hard time, yeah,
Mhm.
about themselves, I say, look at yourself with the same love that you look at somebody you really love at. Look the same way at you,
Mhm.
at yourself, you know, with others. You're always ready to accommodate them and say, hey, it's okay, I love you anyway, you know.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
why don't you do it with yourself? It's so easy.
Exactly. There's this practice, this Taoist technique of inner smile. I love that, that you smile at yourself, that you smile at your liver, you smile at your face, you smile at your toes, and for many people, it's so hard to do that.
I
Smiling at yourself.
Yeah, I came across it in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I was in India with Osho, he was teaching that. And he said, okay, when you wake up in the morning, just keep your eyes closed and just imagine that your heart has lips, and is smiling. And very soon you have that all over your face. I love doing that. It's a
Yeah.
really great and simple exercise.
Yes.
Another way I suggest it to people sometimes is to just imagine their favorite Buddha statue, if
Mhm.
they have one.
Yeah. Yeah.
These statues so often have this etheric,
Hmm.
beautiful smile on their lips. Just replicate that when you're sitting somewhere, and suddenly your heart opens,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
you
everything
tune
is
in.
just right as it is. Yeah? And
Yeah.
that's real abundance when you have
Yeah.
that.
That's what I recommend to some people who tell me that when they treat themselves with Reiki, nothing happens. They treat others, it's great, but if they treat themselves, it doesn't work. Then I recommend to them, do meditation and do inner smile for yourself. And after a while, they open up to receive Reiki too. It's just allowing yourself to love yourself, I think.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but that's what it
Mm.
is. Very simple.
Um, I would just go back a little bit to the Neon Reiki Gakkai. Uh, I've heard that they opened up during the last years and were accepting foreigners.
Yeah, this is what I heard too, that
Mhm.
about, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago or
Mhm.
something, they opened up somewhat and accepted some foreign members. But I also heard recently that they stopped that again because it wasn't working out for
Mhm.
them.
Mhm.
It was difficult, communication was difficult. They took on some foreign members who also didn't speak the language and didn't
Mhm.
understand the rules. So I heard that they closed it back down again. But
Okay.
but I don't really know. The present president, I don't know him, so can't
Mhm.
really say anything about that.
So, considering this, my impression is that, let's say, 99.9% of people doing Reiki in Japan are being taught Western style, and the rest is fading away.
Yes, yes, that's how it is. Yeah. So the Japanese, they have this very funny habit.
Mhm.
They um, appreciate their own culture more if they see that it flourishes abroad. Yeah, so it's
Oh,
really
yeah.
funny, and then it gets kind of re-imported. Yeah, so they export something. Let's say karate was exported in the 60s,
Mhm.
and then when Japanese people were walking around in New York, they saw a karate studio ever on every street corner. They're going like, "What the hell? That must be good." Yeah, and then they started practicing it again in Japan, and with Reiki is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. Now, many people learn from one of the Takata schools, and most people who practice Reiki in Japan practice the Western variation because the Usui Association is not public.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they cannot practice there. Not possible. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So
So there are many myths around the Usui Nihon Reiki Gakkai that everybody who is in that Gakkai is enlightened and that they know the real Reiki. And if you would just come to know one of them, be able to touch, you know, their trousers, that the light will come on to you. And
yeah, this Disneyland, no? Everybody
yeah.
is cooking with making the tea with the same water. Huh? If you practice Reiki wholeheartedly, it doesn't matter where you do it, from whom you learn. When your heart is in it,
Okay.
you give yourself fully. You get the
So
good.
they also have to work.
They also have to work.
That's good to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just being in some association doesn't change anything. Yeah, this is just people's insecurity. They always project and they think that if I do this or that, then. But there is no then. Yeah? It's happening here. This
This
is your
moment,
life. Yeah.
only today.
Only today. Don't project into something, yeah, or somebody else. There is nobody to help you. Just help yourself. And
Yeah.
with Usui Sensei's present to the world, he gave us something that we can transform ourselves right here, right now, ourselves, and we don't need anybody else,
Yeah.
really. Of course, it's great to have people to practice with.
Absolutely. It's much fun to meet with other Reiki guys and just exchange. So when you met the Yamaguchi family, it was, I think, 1995, 1997 or so, right?
No, a little bit later. So after hörst du das?
Ja.
Die Kinder kommen jetzt nach Hause. Ne? Jetzt wird es ein bisschen knapp.
Gut, dann machen wir noch 2 Minuten.
Ja, können wir noch 2 Minuten machen. Ich
Okay.
gucke, dass die gerade mal ruhig sind. Und dann machen wir die Yamaguchi ein andermal. Wir können ja den Übergang schon mal machen.
Das
Ne?
machen wir, okay. So, but I heard that the Yamaguchi family was starting to teach Reiki to Westerners much before that. Is that right?
No, that's
No?
not right. No, so I met Chiyoko Yamaguchi in 2000, and I heard about her in 1999, and that was just the time when they had started their association, the Jikiden Reiki Association, yeah, in 99, and the first workshops they did in 2000, and I came for I don't know, the second or third workshop they ever did. Before that, they didn't have any foreign students at all, zero. Yeah, only Japanese people. And Chiyoko Sensei wasn't really teaching the way that we do or the way that we do it now, but she was treating people over maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months or so, and they would start out obviously not well, then get better and better, get really well, and then say to her, wow, that's such a nice thing. I wonder if I could also learn that, and probably I must go to Tokyo to learn it, right? And she would say, well, no, actually, you can learn it from me. And that's how she taught. But in 99, after they founded the Jikiden Reiki Institute, then they started teaching seminars all over the place. And when I said earlier that in Japan, almost all people practice, the Reiki people practice Western Reiki, it's not true now. The Jikiden Reiki Institute, we have in Japan about 15,000 Jikiden Reiki practitioners.
That's wonderful to hear.
It's nice. So
yeah. So we talk next time in our next video more about the Yamaguchi family and their heritage, right?
Nice. Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, thank you, Arjava. Have a great time.
Bye. Thank you.